I am delighted to introduce Dana Wolter, an interior designer celebrated for her timeless Southern style and her ability to create spaces that are elegant and comforting. Her work has been featured in Traditional Home, Southern Living, Atlanta Homes and Lifestyle, and growing up in a large family, she quickly understood the importance of having a space that felt like a sanctuary for retreat and celebration. Over the last several decades, she has helped clients across the country discover their own personal definition of living well. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Welcome to Grandma Silver, where tradition meets today. I'm Allie, your host of the Grandma Silver podcast and founder of the Grand Millennial Lifestyle. Here, we blend aesthetics with nostalgia, engaging in conversations with lifestyle brands, designers, and more to rediscover the timeless charm of the past. Join me as we journey from home to heart, illuminating the past and polishing the present with the gleam of Grandma Silver. Well, thanks for being here today. I'm really excited to chat.
Hi, Allie. Thank you so much, first of all, for having me on your podcast. I am very honored to be here. So my name is Dana Wolter. I'm a designer located in Birmingham, Alabama, in a suburb called Mountain Brook. I've been in this business for almost 21 years, so a really long time. And we specialize in residential turnkey interior design. We work all over the country. We do a lot of vacation homes in different places, as well as people's, main residences across the United States.
Are you from Birmingham, Alabama?
I'm originally from Tuscaloosa. So my dad was originally from Buffalo, New York, and came down to Alabama on a basketball scholarship and met my mother. And he also played baseball, and he ended up playing Major League Baseball. So he would go with my mom in the winter to spring training and then baseball season, but he would come back in the winter to Tuscaloosa and work. And so once he finished baseball, they settled in Tuscaloosa, and I grew up there.
Did you end up traveling quite a bit then?
This was before I was born. So
Okay.
I'm one of 5 children. I'm number 3 of the 5. And so my brother and sister that are older than me were born, but they had settled in Tuscaloosa for good once I was, brought into the mix. So,
I have questions about this because I know environment really shapes your, probably I'm making assumptions right now, but I'm a firm believer that environment shapes a lot of our aesthetic and just how things that we appreciate and traditions and that sort of thing. So I'm eager to talk about that a little bit.
sure. I think I'm a different mix, with my dad being a Yankee.
Yeah.
And my mother was originally from Texas, and when they met in Alabama. So she really wasn't from the true South, really more West, although we had very, Southern traditions through my mother's family.
Mm-hmm.
But as a child, I remember some of my friends making fun of me by the way I would say certain words. And it was the way that, my dad, instead of saying orange, I said orange, although I have a very strong Southern accent now. At the time, it felt like my upbringing was a mix, if that makes sense.
It does. And it's funny as you say that I'm in the Philadelphia suburbs, so I say orange.
Yeah, so you get it.
Yeah. So
You
I'd feel right at home hearing that. It's also funny to hear you say Texas isn't the true South, because as someone from the Philadelphia suburbs, I consider Texas the South.
right.
It's just that alone is part of what the understanding of the Southern culture,
That's true. And I guess Alabama is more of the deep South,
Right.
Think of Mississippi, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, of course. So my mother, definitely had certain traditions that she taught us, and with manners and our upbringing. That is for sure. And then, of course, my environment as well, with friends and just, my surroundings.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about how you wound up in this line of work.
Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, I've been doing this for 21 years, Allie, but it was a windy road at the beginning. And so like a lot of 18-year-olds, when I began college, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I ended up changing my major 3 times over the course. And one of the majors that I took a couple classes in was interior design. I enjoyed it, but I don't know why at the time. I can't recall why I changed and moved on to something else. But my degree is actually in journalism. as my major, and my minor was in English because I always enjoyed writing. And then I ended up going into sales right out of college. So I tell a lot of kids, we do a lot of with Sanford University here in Birmingham, a lot of times they'll bring one of the professors will bring one of the classes here every semester or every, other semester. And I always tell the kids, pay attention to what your natural gifts are. Because I'm a firm believer, even though they ebb and flow, what comes easily to you are your gifts. And it was always a gift of mine. I mean, I would, um, you know, decorate my bedroom, or I was very, I made extra money as a teenager because I would make these earrings that I would sell. So I was always very creative, but how I ended up owning an interior design business for this long and doing the work that we do across the country. My husband and I married and we bought a house, we fixed it up. We did that a couple of times and made money on it. And as I started having children, I had friends that would sit there and say, "Will you come over and help me pick a paint color? Or will you come over and, look at this?" And so I just did it just because I enjoyed it. It was really a God moment for me because it was, my youngest was 4.5, and I started feeling a little bit of an urge where I wanted to go back to work a little bit. And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted my children to stay, my first priority, but I started feeling that. And it really was, I had two friends that didn't know each other who asked me around the same time, "Look, I want to start paying you to help me. Will you do it?" So, like anybody else, I went and bought my business license and my business began. I probably would have grown a lot faster and a lot easier if I'd gone to work with somebody or worked for somebody rather and just learned the ropes because it was trial and error as I learned. But the good news was at that time, my husband and I had 3 children, 3 girls. So I was able to be flexible with my schedule and work my work around taking care of them. And it's just grown over the years. I really didn't start traveling overnight very much until my youngest, who's now 25, until she was senior in high school. I really tried to be present for my children, but that's really when my career took off, was like the past 7 or 8 years, and just getting bigger projects that are further away.
So you and your husband, you were flipping houses?
I wouldn't say flipping houses. We would live
Okay.
in them for a couple of years and
Okay.
fix them up and then sell them. We did that a couple of times. My own house was always I guess, my experiment project, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I also love to read. I'm self-taught, but I did a lot of reading and a lot of just trying to soak it in as much as I could because there's so much to know.
Let's talk about kind of like your design philosophy.
So, my tagline for my business is the comfort and elegance of home. And I just had a coffee table book come out in September, and that's the tagline. And I really believe that is a good description of my design aesthetic as well as what I want to create for our clients.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, I want a home to be beautiful, curated, customized to their lifestyle. But I want it to also be livable and practical and just a great environment to make memories with family and friends. I think that's one of the things with coming from such a large family was that I know what nice things are. I appreciate nice things. I curate nice things, but we do there are a lot of conversations with our clients as far as what can we do to make you enjoy this room, to make you walk into this room, to use this room. We really look at the practicality of a house and a project. And, how's this house going to grow to accommodate your family over the years, right? So, for instance, someone like you, Allie, that has one baby, and if you're in your home that you're going to be the next 10 years, your needs today are going to be a lot different than they'll be 5 years from now, and certainly 10 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of conversation that goes into our work before we even begin designing.
How has because you now have really like lived through the different seasons of motherhood in a lot of ways. So
Mhm.
how has that impacted that approach?
If anything, I feel like I have great experience to share with clients. There have been times where this has worked well for my family, or this is what I have seen. I guess that's one of the silver linings of becoming older, right? Is that, I've been through several of these stages. None of my girls are married yet, but that'll be the next stage, adding in-laws and of course, God willing, grandchildren one day. What a blessing that would be. But so far, I definitely feel like that's just great experience that I can share with my clients.
You've talked about how you've worked across the United States.
If COVID taught us anything, it taught us that we can really work anywhere. For being a creative interior design firm, we really are pretty organized. Are we perfect? In no shape at all are we perfect, but we're really pretty organized and we have our system down where we can usually make 5 site visits, sometimes 6, just depending on, how the project goes, with the last one being coming to install the house at one time. It just depends on logistics. I had a conversation with an architect right before Christmas about a project in Belize. I've never worked internationally, but if it made sense and the project made sense, I'm certainly open to it. So we're really not confined by, you know, where a project is. But having said that, I look more, are we a good fit? I want the project to be a good fit, not only on our end, for our clients' end. I want them to, have a great experience and for the end result to be like, this is exactly what I wanted for, me and my family. We don't take on 20 projects at a time. We take on probably 7 or 8 larger projects, and each is in a different timeline. One we might be finishing up, another one is in schematics, another one we're like full throttle going forward in it. I like not having as much on our plate for our team so we can really delve into the details. So we can make sure that, we are implementing and talking to our client about just things that we believe will make the house age better, timeless interiors, timeless materials, and then just making things that we can do to help, the house age gracefully for them and their family as their needs change over the years.
I have a couple of different questions here, so bear with
Sure.
me. But my first one is
Sure.
that you talked a little bit earlier about how your dad is from New York and your mom was from Texas, and then you ended up in Tuscaloosa. So, did their different upbringings shape anything as far as sort of what maybe you would consider your aesthetic? I mean, the North and the South, right?
Yes, yes. I love your questions, Allie. I can tell that you think things through. So it's really funny because if you saw my bedroom growing up, it was not anything special. There was a lot of love in our house, but there was a lot of chaos just with so many kids. It was very warm and loving and, spacious enough for all of us, but it was not anything fine. That was just not one of the things it wasn't important to my father. It was probably a little bit more important to my mother, but I wouldn't say it was the top, her top 3 priorities at all. But as I mentioned earlier, I would definitely was shaped coming from a larger family and learning to carve out a little space for yourself and being creative with how can I make this a space that I can enjoy, that no one else is going to bother, or I can make it my own without, yeah, when it's not a priority of my parents, if that makes sense.
It does. You mentioned obviously you have clients who will welcome you into their established homes, but you've also mentioned an architect, and I think you said turnkey residential. So
Yeah.
are you working on new builds as well?
That is the majority of our projects
Okay.
and our new builds and or renovations, but mostly new builds. So a lot of our projects last 2 to 4 years. I mean, at
Wow.
Alice Beach, where we've done a lot of work, they're now saying the projects from new build were 3 years. They're now saying they're closer to 4 because it's just been the demand is so high, and then the workforce, to cover all of the demand. So it's a long time that you are, working with a client. And a lot of our clients become friends after we work with them and repeat clients, which I'm very grateful for those relationships. But you want to make sure they're a good fit because if it's not, it sure makes it hard for, both ends. But yeah, the majority of our projects are new build. And it's funny, I always tell the clients that at the end of the day, I feel like I know their house better than they do. I know every little nook and cranny, and I can kind of give you an idea of the dimensions and everything about it because we just live with it. It's our baby too. It's our project as much as it is theirs. And we take pride in, trying to do our best to to give them a home that represents them.
Yeah, you're in a way, you're almost like the first homeowner, right? Because you've been there and then they get to move in.
Yeah, it is. It's really interesting, like looking at my office, because I have a great team. They get so excited about when it's time for install. We all get a little nervous because we all want it to go well. And it's one of those things that there are going to be issues that come up. They always do. But we're always as a team looking to see, okay, these have been issues before. Have we double checked these measurements? Have we looked at this? But it's really sweet to see how much it means to them. We put so much of ourselves into these projects. And, we installed a house for a wonderful family out of Chicago. It was at the beach before Thanksgiving, and it was a 10,000 square foot home. And I was so proud of our team, Allie, because I mean, that's everything. That is everything from the furnishings to the rugs to the draperies to the artwork to the accessories and outside areas, outdoor areas. There were several terraces. And we did that house in 4 days,
What?
everything.
Oh my
And we
gosh.
had like 5 or 6, and we used the last day and a half just to kind of tidy up and tighten some things up. But I was really proud of, I mean, our team gives 110%. Are there things that happen? Yes. But like, I can't ask any more of y'all or myself than what we're giving. We want the clients at the end of the day to love it as much as, we've put ourselves into it.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, we were tired. It
I'm
was
sure you
wonderful.
were.
It was very rewarding because we worked so hard, and you see the fruits of your labor, right? But we were pretty pooped.
Understanding a lot of design is, like you mentioned, becoming friends with your clients, getting to know your clients, being able to kind of translate them into the design.
Yes.
How does that differ when you're walking into a house that they're already living in that you're changing versus a house that you're starting from scratch?
There's still a conversation with each scenario. For instance, we do a lengthy questionnaire for each client project that we take on.
Mhm.
And we go room by room and ask, there are questions not only like, what do you like, dislike, but really, how do you expect to use this room? When a client is coming to us with architectural plans, we're still asking the same questions. How long do you plan on living in this home? Give me your background on your family. Do you have dogs? Do you have, grandchildren, whatever that might be? And then, but when we're working with a home that's already existing, we're still asking those same questions and look and walking through each space saying, okay, how are you utilizing this room? Or if you're not utilizing, what can we add to it, or what can we make it to make you want to enjoy it? And sometimes there are clients that will, this is a great example. This is a client that we've now done 3 homes for them. But when she first brought me in, they have a beautiful home in Mountain Brook, Alabama. And she said it was their main family room. And the house was very large. It was probably a 10,000 square foot house. But their family room, the way there was, it was a big space, but it had these arches. You couldn't even put a standard size 84-inch sofa in there. So she brought me in going, I need some new furniture in this room. And I looked at her like, you know what? I could sell you a room full of furniture, but you're not going to be happy. I put her in touch with an architect who I felt like was a good fit for that particular project. And we ended up taking out those arches, opening it up, and oh my gosh, it's a completely different room. So it was one of those things coming in there. I couldn't help her with what she had. I mean, I could, but it wouldn't fix why she called me. And then we ended up remodeling, renovating, I guess you could say, the other side of her house, the other wing of her home, because there were a lot of hallways. And we reworked them to create a butler's pantry that connected her kitchen and her dining room, just so it flows so much better
Mm-hmm.
for her family and when they entertain. Those are the scenarios too. Someone will, ask us to come to help, decorate their home, but we really can't do anything until we fix the bones.
Well, and I'm sure that having that experience working with architects so closely on new builds, especially, lends itself, like you were mentioning, you read a lot, but you didn't have the certain training.
Yes.
I feel like in that way, it's another way that you've been trained really to do part of the role that a lot of other designers who might even have formal training don't get to experience.
Yes, there's definitely, don't get me wrong, formal training is very important. And if I'd had it, it would have cut my learning curve significantly. But there's also something to be said learning in the field.
Hmm.
And something I didn't mention earlier was that we built a house, which is still our home. We've been in it for 18 years, around the time that I started my business. That was really a great learning project for me because it helped me. This sounds so strange, but it helped me be able to see things in 3D. Like I knew room dimensions, but I could now visualize room dimensions and just seeing the process, the first time. And my house was I guess the guinea pig. That was invaluable to me at that time as a learning experience. I didn't even realize it until,
Yeah.
I was through it, but it was so good.
You mentioned your book, and I don't want to forget to bring
Yeah.
that back into the conversation. So tell me about that.
Yes, I'm very excited. My coffee table book, it's my first one, came out in mid-September. It's called The Elegance and Comfort of Home, and it has several of our projects in it from the most recent years. When I received the book deal, I had just gone through chemo for stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Wow.
And it was one of those things that the news was great, but the timing was terrible because I wasn't out of the woods yet, and I really didn't know what the future was going to hold for me. But, it was an opportunity of a lifetime. I moved forward with it, and I'm so glad I did because I'm in a completely different place 2 years later than I was at the time, or 2.5 years really, when I received the book deal. But it's fun. There are 3 vacation homes in there. 2 of them are from Alice Beach. One is a Four Seasons resort down in Florida, along with just some client projects of their main residences. And it's been fun to promote it. It really is, it's been a good time just to go out and meet people. And it's very humbling because, people will come and say, I've been following your work on Instagram or whatever, and I'm so glad to meet you. And I'm so glad to meet them. I mean, just what a blessing and honor that I'm getting to meet some of the people that follow along.
Well, I'll make sure to put a link to that in our show notes
Thank
later, along with your website and your social media pages and all of that. But
thank you
that's a
so
very exciting opportunity. Now, I hope you don't mind my asking this. And I ask because he's doing very well, but my dad is sick. And I know that that diagnosis, which came many, many years ago, changes perspective. Did
much.
that change anything about the way you see home?
Oh my gosh. So this could be a completely different podcast, Allie, because I could really go down a rabbit hole with you on this. But so when I was diagnosed in 2022, COVID was still a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So long story short, I've always been pretty healthy. I don't really drink that much. I don't smoke. I exercise. I thought I was eating healthy, but I was eating out a lot, but thinking I was making good choices. But I started having some pain in my lower back.
Mm.
I felt great. I had a lot of energy and went to a couple of doctors, and they said, oh, it could be arthritis in your hip. And I just kept putting off getting an MRI because I didn't want to get an MRI, which is
Yeah.
so dumb now that I look back, but go figure. So I finally broke down and got an MRI, and I found out December 23rd that I had a tumor on my spine. That Christmas was very interesting. So to top all that off, I found that December 23rd, all the doctor's offices were closing. One of my girls came home with COVID from
Oh,
college. By the time Christmas came along, I had 2 with COVID and one that had not had COVID. And while I was waiting I knew I was going to have to do some kind of treatment. And I was worried. By that time, I couldn't stand up for more than 30 seconds because the pain, I was fine sitting down. So Christmas Day, my oldest, who had just had COVID like 3 weeks before, and I moved into a hotel room because I knew I couldn't get COVID. I needed
hmm.
chemo. And so the day that I got my diagnosis back officially was January 6th, 2022. So I guess it was December 2021 that, they found the tumor.
Hmm.
And I started chemo that night because they were worried that the tumor might paralyze me because of its location. But to answer your question I guess in a long roundabout way, was that I had to be hospitalized for my first 3 treatments. because of the regimen they gave me, COVID being a thing and my immune system being wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up in the hospital one time being neutropenic, which is where I don't have an immune system. So I was at home a lot. I don't think I stepped into my office for 6 weeks. Now I was working the entire time. My office is in walking distance to my design studio. So we would FaceTime. They would drop stuff off at my door and I'd leave it at my door, or my husband would drop it off. But so home really became a refuge for me. As you know, with your dad, you can't, there's not a lot you can control.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt very out of control going through treatment. And it was so fast. I didn't have time to process it. I had a lot of complications. And home really was a refuge for me. And I'm a homebody. People are surprised to hear that because I can talk to anyone, I can make conversation, but that's really where I recharge and, gain my energy is staying home.
COVID changed everybody's view of home, but then there's like that added layer of also perspective of like what matters, what doesn't. It just blows
Completely.
your mind wide open when that kind of stuff happens. So
I have found also that, and I'm not saying I'm never petty because I know I am, but there's sometimes I can't even listen to some conversations.
I know.
I'm a lot more aware of what I want my life to look like as much as I can control. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I can't control everything. And I bet your dad's probably like that a little bit too.
I want to come back to place for a minute. The Southern culture, I have noted, not that other cultures, regional cultures aren't this way, but I feel like the Southern culture is very much rooted in, or at least really values tradition in a
Yeah.
way that sometimes regional cultures don't.
Yes.
So, and also hospitality. Again, not to say that we're not gracious up here in the North, but it's respected differently in the South. How does that influence design?
I mean, it impacts it greatly. It impacts it greatly. And, I grew up, as I mentioned earlier, a large family. And while my father did not really care how our house was decorated, he was very family oriented, or is very family oriented. He's still alive. He's 90. We always had family over, or, friends over and entertaining. So I came from that where you get people together, even if it's casually, and you're grilling out or whatever. But I definitely think in the South, there is it goes back to just hospitality and entertaining and making your guest feel welcome and special. I definitely believe that in the South that it does influence design. But I wonder if it's just in the South or if it's a little bit of being Southern and just being where you like to entertain. There's a lot of conversation with a lot of our clients, and they aren't necessarily all from the South, but are you going to entertain? And the majority of them say yes. And the majority of them say it's casual entertaining. And we take that into account when we're looking at outdoor spaces, or outdoor spaces in relation to indoor spaces and kitchens and all of those types of rooms and scenarios.
Casual entertaining.
Sure.
Let's talk about this for a little because you've also talked about families and your own lived experience helping to inform design and ways that you might encourage people to think things through. Do you have advice or things that you're thinking about when you want a space to be both approachable and timeless?
And a lot of it depends on the house, right? But, if there's a young family that we're helping, we do a lot of like closed storage.
Mm.
So you can hide some of that stuff and find a place for everything. I'm also a big believer that if you're not enjoying something or using something or loving something, give it away, sell it, do something with it. Don't keep it, especially when I see an heirloom that's been passed along and people feel guilty, that they have to use their mother's dining room table because she gave it to them, but they don't really love it. Life is way too short and it's just a thing, even though there's sentimental value there. If it doesn't speak to you, don't, keep it in your home. But to me, casual entertaining can be a lot of different things. So you might have the baby swing in your dining room, right? Well, maybe if somebody's coming over, you might move it to your bedroom, so you can have a dinner party there, or set up a nice table, if you have a little breakfast room. Just trying to make different spaces work for different reasons.
Do you take things, I mean, do you approach the actual items and materials that you put into a space based on where a family is in their journey?
Yes, for sure. And I really feel like that's probably one of our strengths is that when we're having these conversations about, how are you going to utilize these rooms, we're asking the questions. Okay, where are you going to be watching TV? Do you have dogs? Are they going to jump on the furniture? So we are looking at the type of fabrics. Rarely do we use manufactured fabrics. Like, so if I'm pulling a sofa of a certain manufacturer, I won't use their line of fabric. I'll use a fabric from a fabric house so I can really look at the makeup of that fabric and make sure that it's going to give you, as much durability as I can possibly give you. And there are times where we might say, okay, that sofa needs to be as durable as it possibly can. And we might send it off to have it treated to give it just an extra layer. Nothing is 100% sure, but we try to have those conversations and utilize, or maybe it needs to be leather, so they can clean it. And if it's going to get a lot of, wear and tear on it. So there is a lot of conversation.
We're kind of in this in between season, right? Creeping towards spring. We're eager, many of us, for spring,
Yes.
but it's post holiday. People are taking things down. The house suddenly feels naked and weird. Talk to me about ways that people can continue to feel like their home is warm in the winter time without going crazy because we're also segueing. It's like a weird couple of months right now.
And I feel badly complaining because I know you're in Philadelphia and I'm in Alabama, but I can't wait for our longer days and warmer temperatures for sure. So I actually like the month of January because after I have so much stuff in my house and I like live greenery and wreaths and just everything, I just want it all out. I want,
Mhm.
I want it all out and I want to be able to deep clean. I want to clean out, give away, throw away whatever I'm not using and enjoying anymore. So in my mind, I guess I have a different perspective. Yeah, it can feel cold and bare, but it feels like a good starting point. But as far as adding warmth, maybe it comes in different ways. Maybe it's a cozy throw and creating a wonderful little niche on a chair that you like to read or check your email in the morning. And maybe that's where you like to drink your coffee. So you add a little table. So maybe you create more ambiance versus it being something that's spread throughout the house. Maybe it's in strategic areas, if
Mhm.
that makes sense.
It does. And you kind of just described that cozy little corner that you talked about as a child.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm a big believer, look and see what you have in your yard. I mean, I don't know if you have anything green right now, but magnolia is
We have
always
some.
really pretty.
A few like evergreen kind of things.
And I love just green branches or magnolia and something pretty. I mean, that always makes me happy. And I have a parterre in my house that we always do fresh flowers that include snaps. So if I want a little bit of a flower of something, I'll cut a few of those along with some greenery and put it in a little vase next to my kitchen sink. But I hear you. I'm ready for things to start blooming.
Well, Dana, thank you so much for taking the time to chat. This has been super fun. I will make sure, like I said earlier, to post in the show notes so that people can find your website, your book, your social media pages, and connect with you.
Oh my gosh, Allie, I'm so glad to meet you and have this conversation. I've really, really enjoyed it.